So here I am, still sitting with everything that's happened over the last 2 days, trying to make sense of it all. Honestly, I'm not even sure where to begin, but I guess the best place to start is the beginning. I first met Nico around 8 months ago at this international street food festival downtown. I was there with my roommate, Lena. We were sampling all kinds of different foods from all over the world. Nico was working at one of the stands, selling these insanely good pastries from his home country. I won't say exactly where he's from, just to keep some level of privacy, but I will say it's a South American country. He had this really charming accent, and not gonna lie, I thought he was super cute the moment I saw him. We started chatting while I was standing there waiting for my food, and before I knew it, he slipped me an extra pastry on the house. The wild part? His phone number was scribbled on the napkin it came with. It felt like something straight out of a cheesy rom-com, and I was totally into it. We texted for a few days, hit it off, and before long, we were dating. And honestly, in the beginning, it was great. He was super thoughtful, always saying sweet things, constantly wanting to hang out, making me feel seen. He loved talking about his culture and how life was different where he grew up. His English was really good, though he definitely had an accent, which, for the record, I found kind of hot. After about a month of us dating, he started crashing at my place more and more. I live in a cozy one-bedroom that I'm actually really proud of because I've been paying all my own bills since I turned 20. I work in office admin. It's not glamorous, and it's definitely not what I dreamt of doing as a kid, but it pays the rent. I've always been honest with Nico about where I'm at in life. From the start, I made it clear, I've got plans. I'm not staying in this job forever. I didn't come from a family where things were handed to me, so I know I've got to grind for what I want. Anyway, after a couple of months, Nico was basically living with me full-time. It didn't happen all at once, it was this slow creep. One day he had a change of clothes at my place, the next he had a drawer, and before I knew it, all his stuff was there, and he wasn't going back to wherever he was staying before. And at the time, I was happy about it. I really liked him, and I genuinely believed we were building something together. Looking back now, I see the first red flag, which I completely ignored, LOL, was that he never once offered to pitch in for rent or bills. When I finally brought it up, this was around the 3-month mark, he gave me this whole thing about how he didn't have stable income and how tough it is to get by on a visa. And honestly, I believed him. I wanted to be supportive. Immigration stuff is no joke. But then these little comments started slipping into our conversations. Nothing too crazy at first, more like subtle jabs. He'd say things like, "You curse a lot. Women from my country don't talk that way," or "You dress very American," or "You're kind of loud when you laugh." At the time, I brushed it off. I figured it was just a culture clash, no big deal. But then those little remarks started happening more often, and they started cutting deeper. He'd say things like, "You wouldn't last a day where I'm from. Women there know when to be quiet." Or he'd shoot me this annoyed look if I spoke up during dinner with his friends. Meanwhile, he still wasn't bringing in much money. He'd do the occasional food delivery job here and there, but most days he was camped out at my desk playing video games on my laptop while I was off working a full 9-hour day. Then I'd come home, completely wiped, and he'd look up and go, "What's for dinner?" And for some reason, I'd just make dinner. Like that was normal. Now that I'm looking back, I'm shocked at how one-sided everything got. So, about a week ago, I finally snapped and said something like, "Hey, I'm starting to feel a little worn out handling all the expenses alone." And let me tell you, his reaction was off the charts. He immediately got defensive and hit me with, "So now you don't trust me? I thought we were building something, and here you are counting pennies like some shopkeeper." And guess what? I ended up feeling guilty. Like I was in the W Gerald for even bringing it up. He ignored me for 2 full days after that. And yeah, I actually apologized to him. Like, what was I thinking? Anyway, fast forward to this past weekend. Nico told me his parents were visiting for a few days and wanted to come over for dinner. I was genuinely excited to meet them, like, maybe this would be a step forward for us. But then he started giving me all these little rules. Don't joke too much. Don't be rude. Make sure to be polite. My mom's really traditional. So I spent the entire day cleaning the apartment top to bottom, cooking not one, not two, but 3 different dishes, including this recipe from his country that took forever to figure out, and basically stressing out the whole time trying to make sure everything was perfect. By the time his parents got there at 7 p.m., I was totally drained, but trying to keep it together with a big smile on my face. His folks were polite. That's the best word I can use. They smiled, nodded, but something about their energy felt a little off right from the start. The second they walked in, they were already speaking to Nico in their native language. And it wasn't just a quick greeting, they stuck with it for almost the entire evening. Even while sitting at the dinner table I had spent hours preparing, they kept the conversation in their language. I tried to stay upbeat, nodding and smiling like an idiot while understanding literally none of it. Every now and then, Nico would translate something, but it was always super vague. Like, oh, they're talking about our cousin's new baby, or it's just some family stuff. Then, halfway through dinner, I realized I'd forgotten cream and lemons for the dessert I'd planned. I told Nico I was gonna run to the corner store real quick and would be right back. They all nodded and kept chatting like it was no big deal, so I grabbed my keys and left. When I came back about 15 minutes later, the vibe had shifted. They had clearly changed topics and things just felt different. The rest of the night played out the same way, me trying too hard, them speaking their language, and Nico acting like a totally different person around his parents. They left around 11 that night, and I was so emotionally wiped out that I didn't even try to make conversation. I just went straight to bed. The next morning, I was in the kitchen making my usual cup of coffee when something clicked in my brain. About 1.5 years ago, my place got broken into, my laptop and a couple pieces of jewelry were stolen. After that, I got 2 small security cameras off Amazon. Nothing fancy, just basic ones I set up for peace of mind. One faces the F. Gerald door from the living room, and the other's tucked on a shelf in the kitchen. I don't really check them anymore unless I absolutely have to. They're just sort of there. But as I stood in the kitchen sipping my coffee, this thought popped into my head. I could actually go back and listen to whatever Nico and his parents were talking about while I was out at the store. At first, it felt kind of sketchy, like, would that be crossing a line? But then I reminded myself. 1. This is my apartment. 2. Those cameras are in plain sight, no secrets there. 3. They were sitting around in my space, speaking in a language I don't understand, right after I cooked them dinner. So yeah, I decided to pull up the footage. I grabbed my phone, opened the security app, and scrolled to the clip from around 8:30 p.m., right after I'd left to pick up the cream and lemons. At first, it was just more of the same. Everyone's speaking their language, eating the food I made, sitting at my table like they owned the place. But then, maybe 2 minutes in, something shifted. Even though I couldn't understand a single word, the mood in the room changed. It was in their body language, the way Nico's mom started speaking with more energy, waving her hands and glancing toward the kitchen. His dad chuckled here and there, nodding along. And Nico, he just sat there, smiling and agreeing, like he was in on some private joke. I didn't know what they were saying, but it didn't feel good. It felt like they were talking about me. At first, I didn't know what to do with this clip. I mean, without understanding the language, what was the point? But then I remembered this online tool I'd used before for work, one of those sites that transcribes and translates audio. So I trimmed the footage, saved it, and uploaded it. An hour later, the translation came back. And I swear, I wish I'd never read it. Nico's mother said, "She's not that pretty, but at least she cleans up after you." Then she laughed and added, "Well, at least she knows her place." His dad chimed in with, "She's like a free housekeeper." Good choice, son. And Nico? The guy I'd been supporting, feeding, and basically taking care of for months? He laughed and said, "She's useful. The apartment's always clean, the food's always ready." American girls are so easy to control. Just make them feel guilty for asking for anything, and they'll give you everything. There was more, so much more. It got nastier. They made fun of how I look, the job I work hard at, my apartment, and even the food I spent all day preparing for them. And they did it all while eating at my table in my home. The part that hurt the most? Not once during that entire conversation did Nico stand up for me. Not once did he say, "That's not okay," or "Don't talk about her like that." He just went along with it. He laughed with them. I stared at my phone screen for what felt like hours. Just frozen. My mind started replaying every little jab and backhanded comment he'd made over the past few months, the ones I brushed off as just cultural differences. All those times he made me feel like I wasn't good enough, not classy enough, not quiet enough. Now I could see it for what it really was. He never respected me. I wasn't his partner, I was just convenient. And the craziest part? He was still asleep in my bed while I was sitting in the kitchen where his family had laughed at me behind my back. I knew right then that it had to end. I needed him out of my apartment, out of my life. But there was also a part of me that wanted to Son F. Gerald him. I wanted him to see my face when I told him I understood every single vile thing they said. Anyway, that's where I was in that moment, a woman who had apparently spent 8 months being someone's unpaid maid, thinking it was love. I felt so unbelievably stupid. He just woke up and asked me what I was doing. I told him I was checking my emails. He kissed the top of my head like everything was fine, and now he's in the shower. I think I'm gonna start packing up his stuff while he's in there. I'm done. I don't want him spending even one more night under my roof. A lot has happened in the last 36 hours. I'm writing this from Lena's couch. It's around 2 a.m., and I can't sleep. But I wanted to update you. When I left off, Nico was in the shower, and I had just found out what he and his family had said about me. And the weirdest part? I felt calm. Not sad. Not mad. Just hollow. That kind of still anger where everything inside you goes quiet. As soon as I heard the water shut off, I put my phone down and walked to the bedroom. I reached under the sink, grabbed 2 black garbage bags, and just started shoving his stuff into them. No folding. No sorting. Just tossing things, his clothes, his shoes, his dumb gaming headset, everything. There wasn't even that much. He didn't come into this relationship with anything, really. I found the little box where I kept photos of us, snapshots from that street food festival where we first met, a couple of selfies from the beach, little memories that felt so important at the time. I tore them in half and threw them in with his clothes. I was halfway through clearing out his drawer when he walked in, wearing nothing but a towel around his waist. He froze the second he saw the garbage bags, the scattered clothes, and judging by the look on his face, the expression I must have been wearing. At first, he just looked confused. He asked what I was doing, if something was W. Gerald. His voice had this nervous, jittery edge to it, something I'd never heard from him before. I didn't say anything right away. When he stepped forward and reached for my arm, I flinched and pulled back so fast I knocked the lamp off my nightstand. It didn't shatter, but the shade bent sideways. That's when I told him. I looked him straight in the eye and said, "I know exactly what you and your parents said about me while I was at the store." I told him I had security footage from the kitchen, clear audio, all recorded from the camera that had been their way before I even met him. I told him I had it translated. I told him I heard him call me his personal housekeeper. And the way his face changed in that moment? I'll never forget it. There was this brief flash of shock, like he'd been caught red-handed, then he instantly tried to deny it. He said I must have misunderstood the translation, that I didn't get the cultural context, that it was all just a joke. But I wasn't having it. I just kept folding and tossing his clothes into the bag. I didn't say anything else. So he changed tactics. The charm vanished and out came the anger. He started yelling that I was spying on him, invading his privacy, recording his private conversation with his family, in my own apartment, on cameras that have literally been sitting out in the open the entire time. Still, I stayed calm. I kept packing, and that made him even more furious. He stormed over, grabbed my wrist hard, yanked me away from the bags, and shouted that I was being crazy. That I was blowing everything out of proportion. That this was why women from his country were better. Because they didn't act hysterical over nothing. And that's when I snapped. I yanked my arm back with so much force that his nails scratched the skin. Then I shoved him hard and told him to get out. I said, "You've got 20 minutes to get dressed, grab your stuff, and leave, or I'm calling the cops." He called me a crazy. And then he said something that actually made me laugh out loud. "You're throwing away the best thing that ever happened to you." The best thing. A guy who insulted me behind my back, contributed absolutely nothing, and treated me like I was his live-in maid. I told him that was rich, coming from someone who'd been living off me for months. I reminded him that everything he'd been enjoying was mine. My apartment, my food, my internet, my Netflix. All of it. I told him he wasn't a boyfriend, he was a freeloader. A parasite. That one clearly hit a nerve. His whole face turned red, and for a second I thought he might actually hit me. But instead, he yanked up the bags I'd packed, stormed off to the bathroom, and slammed the door to get dressed. A few minutes later, he came out fully clothed, but still fuming. As he walked out, he kept trying to get the last word in, saying I'd regret this, that I'd be calling him in a few days, crying, begging him to come back. That no one else would ever deal with me. I didn't say a word, just opened the door wider and pointed toward the hallway. And before leaving, he knocked over the little table by the door, sending my keys and mail scattering across the floor. Then he slammed the door so hard that the neighbor across the hall poked their head out to check if I was okay. After he left, I sat on the floor in the living room, just kind of frozen. My wrist had these bright red marks where he'd grabbed me, already starting to bruise. That's when it really hit me how far this had gone, how long I'd let someone treat me like this. I cried. Not out of sadness, really. It was more like this mix of exhaustion and anger and relief. Then I went into survival mode. I texted Lena a quick rundown of everything that had just happened. She immediately offered to come over, but I told her I needed a little time alone first. I went through the apartment gathering anything he might have left behind. A phone charger, a few of his books, a jacket in the back of my closet. I stuffed them all into another bag and left it by the door. Then I called a locksmith. Cost me $275 for a Sunday emergency service, but by 6 p.m., the locks were changed. Worth every single penny, no question. Around 8 p.m., the texts started. The first one was simple, "You're making a big mistake." I didn't respond. Then came, "I left my charger and a few other things. I need to come get them." Still nothing. Then, "Are you seriously ignoring me? After everything I've done for you?" Everything he's done for me. I almost chucked my phone across the room. By 10 p.m., he changed his tone again. "I'm sorry if you misunderstood what we were saying. It's a cultural thing. You wouldn't understand." Then, "Can we please just talk? You're overreacting." Right around that time, Lena showed up with wine and takeout. She sat with me while I showed her the translation. She was furious. Like, I had to physically talk her down from driving to go see ONF Geraldton, kind of furious. She stayed with me until midnight, helping me go through my phone and delete every photo of him. We untagged me from anything he'd posted. Instagram, Facebook, gone. When I woke up this morning, Monday, I had 17 missed calls and over 30 texts from him. They ran the full emotional manipulation playbook. Some were aggressive. "You'll regret this." Others were begging, "Please, I'm sorry, let's talk." Then there were the guilt trips. I have nowhere else to go. You know my situation. I blocked his number. Then I remembered he could still DM me on Instagram and message me on WhatsApp, so I blocked him there too. Then Facebook. Then even LinkedIn, just to cover all the bases. I called in sick to work today. My wrist was sore, and honestly, I just couldn't bring myself to deal with people. My boss was understanding, told me to take the day and rest. Around noon, there was a knock at the door. I checked the peephole, and there he was. Nico. I didn't answer. He stood there for a while, knocking, then started calling my name through the door. I didn't say a word. Just sat there on my couch, silently watching him through the peephole like some weird reverse stalker situation. He stood there for a solid 10 minutes, knocking and calling my name. But eventually, he gave up and left. I texted Lena right away, and she insisted again that I should come stay with her for a few days. Honestly, it seemed like the smart thing to do. So that's where I am now, crashing on her couch, trying to feel human again. And of course, now that I've had some space, all the red flags I ignored are flooding my brain like a bad highlight reel. How he never paid for anything. How he constantly made those backhanded comments about how I spoke, dressed, laughed. How he guilt-tripped me anytime I asked for something as basic as fairness. How he never once invited me to hang out with his friends without him around. How he subtly dismissed my career goals like they were a joke. Looking back, it all feels so obvious. But at the time? I don't know. I think I was just swept up in the fantasy of it all, of dating someone who seemed different and charming and worldly. I didn't want to face the reality staring me in the face. And then today, I got another surprise. His cousin, the one he's actually close with, sent me a message on Instagram. She said Nico had told the whole family that I kicked him out because I was mentally unstable and jealous of his culture. Can you believe that? She said she didn't buy it, though. She reached out because she wanted to hear my side. So I sent her the transcript. The translation of everything he and his parents said about me. She was horrified, apologized for their behavior, said she couldn't believe how they'd talked about me. At least there's one decent human being in that whole family. So yeah, that's where I'm at. Sleeping on a friend's couch. Blocked my boyfriend, ex of 8 months, on every app and platform I could think of. Still trying to figure out what the hell just happened and what comes next. I've never had a breakup unfold like this before. So messy, so heavy. Part of me is scared he's not going to stop. That he'll try to show up at my job, try to corner me into talking to him.